Hi, this is Mark from Altcoin Buzz, and today we've got a couple things going on. We're going to take a look at Bitcoin. We're going to look at the wrap-up of the month, the new week that we got started, the correction that we've had over the last day and a half, and see where that might be leading us over the next week and into the end of the month. We're also going to take a look at an exciting platform called Autobot, which allows you to invest in different indexes on cryptocurrencies, have it auto rebalance for you, and make your money work that much harder without really having to do any day-to-day hands-on stuff with it. It has some abilities to customize as well, and it's a great way to just get started off on maximizing your investment, and I'll show you my results that I've had thus far with this platform. So let's get started. Okay, so let's start on the Bitcoin USD 4-hour chart. This is the Coinbase chart. Sometimes when things like this happen, I like using the Coinbase lower time frame charts just because it gives me a little bit of an idea on the sentiment that's in the retail market going on right now. Not all the time, but sometimes. So as we look at the 4-hour chart, it looks a little messy. Let me just clean it up for you. What we've got are these regression trends. Remember, these are like Bollinger Bands. So if you know what Bollinger Bands are, where it uses trading averages to create an area of support and resistance, top and bottom. It also gives us a little bit of a median, a center line, and we look at where we're trading within those ranges. While that's done on moving averages, this is done straight across on price action. And you can see that we were trending up. We would come up, and this is the higher end of our first longer term regression trend. In the second wave up, the shorter term regression trend, this is still on an upward movement. This is the top line of that trend right now, or right here. And then this shorter move, the shorter time period where we're trading sideways, consolidating, potentially having a distribution area for us, has now broken down, and that regression trend is now in a bearish sentiment. We had a whole month here basically of bullish sentiment. Now we've got some bearish sentiment in the last few days. Now the silver lining of this is we do have what seems to be forming on the lower time frames an ascending triangle, which theoretically could be a break to the upside. If we do get the break to the upside, we have a lot of resistance that we're going to come up against. We've got resistance that we've already tested and it's rejected at the $7,900 price point. We've got resistance coming on the bottom of that regression trend long term, resistance coming from the median on our shorter trend, on the regression trend. And so all that resistance kind of piles up at about the $8,000, $8,100 range, kind of in that area. So if we do get a push up from this little bit of an ascending wedge, the theoretical on that on a measured move would be from where that wedge is formed, the start of that wedge, which is about 4%, and then where it breaks out, which would be here at this line. And if we went up 4%, then that puts us right in that area, right? So theoretically, if we get a break out of this to the upside, we'd be looking at testing all of that starting to have some confluence. All of this is starting to kind of line up, if you will, and tell the story that we would be finding resistance in this area. It would also be the end of that measured move. So that's the most that we could potentially expect out of it with the volume the way it's trending, where we get more movement to the downside on negative volume than we do to the upside on the positive volume. So again, short term, that's what I'm leaning towards right now as I look at this. So let's zoom out and take a look at the long term, because on the long term we do have a gap in the VPVR, that volume by price. So let's just take a look at that. So on the 1 day, and now this is on the Bitstamp USD 1 day chart, and we've got clear resistance areas that we've set up here based upon the VPVR and some of the other candles on the lower time frames. And you can see if we get rejected at this $8,000 area, then chances of this holding as support are not as strong, and we'll look at some of the momentum indicators in just a minute. But then we've got a pretty large gap here to fill down to about $7,200, $7,300. You can see there's some confluence back here in that area. It's also a volume by price ratio, this blue and yellow line that you can see over here, these lines that line up. You can see where it pulls out. That's where our potential support would be, although fairly weak because it wasn't really tested again during this uptrend, right? So we don't have a lot of history back there on this being support. The history that we have is back in this area last year at the swing high. But even then, that was the resistance area. It didn't hold as resistance for very long. So this, in my mind, is a very weak support area for us to be looking at. Now that's just price action. The price action says potentially on the lower time frames we can break up to the upside. The volume indicates that we won't break through that resistance and it will come back down from there. We also have a squeeze indicator that's ready to cross over. This is a lagging indicator, but it's ready to cross over. We've got the NVT that we've been looking at that has already broken through support. It's broken through the trend. It's broken through support. It's on a number of levels, and it's trying, and it looks like it's potentially going to find resistance as well, or has found resistance. That's not boding well. Looks like we're going to have a turnover on the Connor stochastic, and we've also got this momentum that's in a downward trend. So even on the daily, so while the very short time frame looks like we could break to the upside and get a little bit of movement, on the daily, that would just translate potentially to just a bear flag playing out, resistance back in here, and a flag playing out back to the downside to try and find support back at $7,200. On the weekly, you can see that we had that doji, that indecision last week. We're starting off the week in a negative stance, potentially signifying a top out here. But remember, this weekly, when we were looking at it, even on a Saturday, was still showing that could have been the top and that we were going to trend down, and it closed out into doji. So we still have some time left in this week, right? We've got quite a few days where this red candle could close up if we get positive momentum. But if this doesn't close to the positive, here are some things that don't look good from a weekly standpoint either. So now we've closed below the longer term Fibonacci line that we talked about, which is closing above that was where we had the last two parabolic moves, the big parabolic moves up both in 2018 and 2015 back in here. Again, that's above that 232 on the Fibonacci trend line. So not only would we be closing below that, but on a weekly time frame, our high volume areas of trading happened. Again, we looked at that 7,075, back in the swing high, but the next one we'd have to test back is at the $6,500 area again, right? And that has not been tested as support yet. So the reality of going back there and trying to test that is very probable. And we don't know how that's going to hold up. While it held up in 2018 as strong support, theoretically, it should have been strong resistance for us as well, and we blew right through it. So now the test is going to be, how does that hold as support a first time on this upward trend? It could hold there and we start getting a new trading pattern tightening up in this area, or it could break down from there and go back to the Fibonacci trend line on the bottom and be closer into the $5,500 range again. 5,000, somewhere in there. It's yet to be played out. This is the longer time frame. These are just some scenarios. But the thing that we should be looking at, and we've talked about before, is that we did have the stochastic weekly RSI dip down quite deep. It could still potentially correct back up, but we'd have to have a significant move up to get that back above the signal line. And once we get these crosses in this signal line, we have some pretty drastic moves down. We've talked about them before, and we can take a look at them again. Back here, we had a cross below the signal line. That's when we had this dump down. Back in here, we had a cross below the signal line. Here, we had a cross below the signal line. Back in here, we had a cross below the signal line. Back in here, across below. You can see that pattern, when we break below that, is a significant retracement. So there are a lot of indications that we are not only on just a correction, that we are now potentially entering into that retracement that we knew was inevitable. We couldn't just keep on this parabolic rise and continue up without stopping and pausing at some point. And it looks like this may be that point. Where we end up finding support on the way back down is yet to be seen, but we've looked at some of those logical areas already. So that'll wrap it up on Bitcoin right now. So let's talk about Autobot. This is pretty fun. I'm really excited about sharing this with you. So this is a platform where, just again to summarize, you put a deposit in and you can pick some indexes or create your own index, and it will auto balance or rebalance automatically your portfolio based upon the amount of time that you want to give it for rebalancing. You determine that as well, and reallocate your portfolio to perform, or the theory is to outperform the market. We're going to take a look at my results here in just a minute. I've set up on it for about a week, and it's a very easy process to set up. I'll show you that a little bit as well, but just to give you an idea, once you get your funds in, you can pick one of these predetermined portfolios. And so you can choose from their indexes as they've got them set up right now. They're predetermined. So if we looked at the HODL 10 index, what you'd have is 33% BTC, just a little bit over that, some ADA, some Tron. What they're doing is they're taking the top 10 highest market cap coins and including that in the HODL 10 index. Then you've got the Coinbase index, which has its own set of coins in it. The HODL 3, you can go through there and see how that's broken up, but that's basically the top 30 by market cap, and then you've got the top 20 by market cap, and you can also create your own index if you would like. So if I wanted to create my own index, I could go in here. So right now this is set up for Binance, and so I would have to have my Binance account linked to this. This cannot withdraw any funds from your account. All it can do is manage your account within your account, but it cannot withdraw any funds. So your funds are safe from that aspect. And so you can see the platform. You just go in and start pulling out and adjusting your parameters that you would like to see in your own index, or you can create your own portfolio as well and weight the portfolio based upon the coins that you want to have in it. And then that will put that in there. And then you tell it how long you want to wait before it rebalances your account. So that rebalancing is looking at your, let's just take a look at mine real quick and I'll show you my results. So I set my account up about a week ago, just took some of my shit coins that I didn't want anymore and converted them over to BTC finally, and then moved them over here. And I said, let's just try this out. So here's where my account's at right now. I'm down $48 from a fiat standpoint, about 11% over 7 days. And if you go in and if we look at where Bitcoin is right now over 7 days, if I would have just put it all into Bitcoin, I'd be down about 9%, call it 9.2, right? So I'd be down about 9% according to CoinGecko. And right now I'm at just performing, a couple percentage, about 1.5 lower than if I would have just thrown it all into Bitcoin. And obviously we recently just had this correction happen. I think this was sitting at about minus $10 at one point in time and going back and forth. So, not a huge fluctuation, just underperforming if I would have put it in Bitcoin alone. And again, it's only had a week to be in place. It's only rebalanced one time. This is a kind of a longer term process that you want to look at. And I'm going to let this keep running and we'll check in every once in a while and see how it's doing. So let's just say I wanted to create my own index or portfolio and then I wanted to back test how it would do. I can do that. So I set the coins that I want to put in. So let's just say that I wanted to go with the top 30 coins, and I'll just go a minimum of 3% on each coin. And I'm going to use the market cap as my weighting strategy. Now I'll just make them even. And so here's how that portfolio splits up amongst those 30 coins. And then I can go ahead and back test that to see how my portfolio would have performed using these parameters. So that may not be the setup that I want to use based upon this back testing of results that I just randomly pulled, but you can see I would have not done very well here over the last year if I had used that setup. But the point being that you can set this up with the coins that you want, or use an index that they already have and weight it a different way, and then back test it to see how you would have performed against that portfolio, and then set that up, save it, and have it rebalance for you over specified periods of time. Just to understand, this is not a trading bot, okay? This is not a high frequency trading bot like a profit trailer or a crypto hopper. Okay, that's where you are going to put in parameters that system needs to hit before it will do a buy for you on a specific coin. So you would set in, if this moving average crosses to the upside and it's at the bottom of the Bollinger Band and the RSI is at a certain level, then I want you to activate a buy. This is not that kind of system. What this will do is it will take those coins that you specified, and when it's time to rebalance, it's going to take another look at the performance of those coins and then weight them, balance those coins out based upon the performance and that mathematical equation to give you the best possible results as determined by the current data. So to set this up, again, it's free if you have an account under $500. If you have anything over that, it's like $10 a month. It's nothing. And it is safe. So you go into Binance and you will go to your settings and set up an API key for it. And actually, if there's enough interest in this, I will go into actually how to set this up from scratch. And you can back test your portfolios and your indexes that you create yourself to see how they might have performed if you would have selected those over a period of time. So a user-friendly tool that you can take advantage of, fairly hands-off, but still gives you a lot of control. Welcome your comments below, and if there's some features that you would like us to go through more thoroughly on this, let me know and I'll try and get to those on the next video. Hey, that's going to wrap it up for today. I hope this was helpful for you, and until next time, may all your trades be good ones.